to really learn to understand that we are all very unique and we all have amazing things to bring to the world. But we don't do that because we think we shouldn't, or we're ashamed, or we just look different or act different than a lot of other people, right? Jan and I talk about this a lot when it comes to energy work and things that people don't understand.
Hi, it's Jan Hamning. Well, I have a special guest with me today. It's a woman that I have known for probably, I don't know, 3 years, maybe 4 years, Tammy Helfrich. And she doesn't live too far away from me, maybe about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes away from me. But I met her in a networking group. And she and I, our businesses are on the same frequency. She's an energy worker of sorts, but she's got a lot going on. She is a coach, a speaker, an author, and she has her own podcast. Tammy, what's your podcast name? What's the title?
Intentional life.
Intentional Life. Yeah,
Yes.
Tammy's an awesome, awesome coach and a healer of sorts. I wanted to have Tammy on here, and I'm going to tell you. I'm going to read. Well, let me read your bio first. Tammy Helfrich is a life coach, host of the Intentional Life podcast, and author of the book Unapologetic. I have read it twice. It's fabulous.
Love
She
it.
is passionate about helping women remember how to trust their intuition so they can expand their unique gifts and live unapologetically. She offers individual coaching sessions and intuitive guidance sessions to help women tap into their own unique magic and gifts. You can connect with Tammy at tammyhelfrich.com. She has a beautiful website too. I just was checking it out again. The book Unapologetic. I want to start right there.
Okay.
What brought you to that point of writing Unapologetic? What was the like what prompted you to do that?
So I'll take you back just a little bit. So part of my story is that I was in the corporate world for almost 20 years. I was in big corporate sales. And about, 12 years ago now, I started really feeling like there was something different for me, but I didn't know what it was. Part of that process was rediscovering how much I love to write. And so at that time, while I was still in the corporate world, I started a blog. And that helped me rediscover my love of writing, which I had kind of forgotten about, honestly, over the years, just when you get busy with life. So fast forward then a few years, actually, it was 2020. And I have always wanted to write a book. And so I'm sitting there in the middle of 2020, like all of us, with more time on my hands and not as many responsibilities. And I thought, if I don't do this now, I will not do this
Yeah.
because I really had no excuses at that point, right? And so I started writing the book. It was a really interesting process because I had never written a book before. I used a book coach to help me because, I had been podcasting for almost a decade at that point and coaching. And so really trying to narrow down your focus is the hardest thing with the book, right? Because initially you want to talk about everything you know. And so Unapologetic is really kind of my journey of learning to understand myself, to own it, and to no longer apologize for it. And that is what I'm really passionate about helping people to do. To really learn to understand that we are all very unique and we all have amazing things to bring to the world. But we don't do that because we think we shouldn't, or we're ashamed, or we just look different or act different than a lot of other people, right? Jan and I talk about this a lot when it comes to energy work and things that people don't understand. And so it really was just my way of, first of all, kind of proving to myself that I could do it, that I could write a book. And, a lot of my mission too is I've had a lot of people who have died with dreams inside of them. And I don't want to be one of those people. And so that's another thing. I didn't want to be in my last days never having written that book that I wanted to write. And so that's kind of a long answer to your question, but
Oh,
that's
I'm
what brought
glad
it to
you,
the world.
no,
Yeah.
I'm glad you went into it because do you find in your coaching, Tammy is a very energy connected, intuitive coach of women. And I highly recommend you reach out to Tammy if you're struggling with something that you're just like, nobody can help me. Nobody can
Mm.
help me. I don't know what to do. I'm just not comfortable in my skin. I'm so afraid of hurting somebody or whatever the case may be. But do you find, Tammy, in your experience, life experience and coaching experience, that women tend to be apologizing regularly for who they are and
Yeah.
how they feel and how they react to certain things? And oh, I'm so sorry. It becomes, I don't know, with people I know, with clients of mine or just women I've known through the years, it's an automatic response. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And it's like, what are you sorry for?
Yes, absolutely. And I found that in my own clients and even in my own life before I wrote the book, but then especially when I wrote the book, because I do talk about that automatic response that we have of just saying we're sorry for everything when we
Yeah.
don't even need to say we're sorry, right? And so I had people say to me, "Well, what do you mean? You just go around being a jerk all the time and you never apologize?" No, that's not what it's about. It's about actually apologizing when you really do mean it, which is part of the problem that people just apologize for things they really don't mean, and then we don't take them seriously. But the bigger issue is exactly what you said. Women, especially, and men do this too, but women more so, I find, we apologize for who we are. We're not thin enough. We're not smart enough. We're not educated enough. We don't do well at public speaking, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever your thing is. And we take that to heart to mean that we're not good enough when actually maybe those are just things that you really don't want to do anyway, but you just apologize for them, right? And so like a really silly example is I am not very mechanically inclined at all. Like I can do basic things, but I mean, how things work, that just blows my mind. That's not. And I've felt shame about that before because, you see other people who can just fix everything. And I have my husband and my two boys are very mechanically inclined. And I used to feel like kind of bad about that. And now I am unapologetic about I don't do that. That's not who I am, right? And I don't have to feel shame about it. Like I think women, especially, we've been conditioned to think that we have to be good at everything, right? And if
Right.
we're not, then that means there's something wrong with us. And what if that's not true? What if by actually focusing on the things that we are really good at and letting someone else do the things that they're good at, that's how we all shine and that's how we all bring what we're supposed to bring to the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. This reminds me yesterday, I I put on my door my own self. I put on a ring bell on my
Hmm.
condo door to the hallway.
Nice, impressive.
Well, yeah, but of course, it wasn't just as simple as it was that everybody says, oh, it's just so simple.
Right.
Now it's like it was just, and a neighbor of mine, I wanted to, because she's very handy, and I actually borrowed her drill because mine was at my office, and I thought she'd volunteer to do it for me, and she didn't. So I'm like, okay, here I go. It's
Yeah.
not perfect. It is not on there perfect, but it's working. And that's
Right.
not even going to apologize.
Yeah.
And I know somebody else would come up and say, well, why'd you do it this way? Well, it's because
Right.
my daughter's like this and it's this. Yeah. But
Right.
it's
Yeah.
funny
I've
because
learned.
I'm not apologizing though, because I did the best I knew how to do with it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I talk a lot about deciding on purpose, right? You decided you wanted to put that in yourself. And so you did, and you should feel great about that. I would decide it's going to take me more time to try to figure out how to do that. So I would rather pay someone to do it. I mean, luckily I have handy boys in my life, but To me, I think part of it is also just, again, really deciding how you want to spend your energy and what you want to do. Because I have tried to do that in the past. I've tried to do things and I've either messed them up or I've gotten so frustrated that it's just not worth my time to do it. It's
And
just not.
that's pretty much how it was by the end because
Yeah.
the one screw out of four wasn't going into the door properly. And then I stripped the screw, and that, it's like,
Right.
really? What
Yeah.
if my little brother were in town, he would have come and did it, but he was gone for another 6 weeks. So I'm like,
Right.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
works. It's fine. It's on there securely. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. But it is interesting though how I become more aware of it when I hear, and mostly women more than men, apologizing for things that it's like, you didn't do anything. Why are you
Mhm.
apologizing? Just because you misunderstood what I said? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Because it's
and
deeper than that. I think for most women, it is like what you said, it's apologizing for who you are and the space you
yeah,
take up in the world.
yeah,
And we don't have to apologize for who we are or the space we take up in the world. And that's a lot of deconditioning that I help a lot of my clients work through.
yeah, that's great. Um, the one thing what really triggered me to reach out to you when I was kind of searching for who can I have on my channel that I personally have experience to work with.
Mm,
And Tammy recently came out as an intuitive healer.
hmm
And I was like one of the first, I think, to jump on board with that one when she
hmm
announced it on social media and in a networking group. And I'm like, I'm going for that one. So I signed up and I had my intuitive session with Tammy in December. And all I'm going to say is if you're questioning or doubting something in your life, doubting like, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't know. What are people going to say? Am I going to be good at this? I don't know. That's kind of scary to come out. Um, Schedule an intuitive session with Tammy because she will tell you more of how she does this. But I'm going to let you know that it brought confirmation and confidence into me
Mm.
of things I've been battling in my heart for
Mm.
months, months, months.
Oh,
And
I love that.
I have told several people about it. And I've given Tammy full credit for this and her connections, her channeling, um, on how she was the one who had me step forward and had
Mm.
me break out of my comfort bubble. And,
Oh, so
and so
good.
Tammy, can you just tell us a bit? And I know this is, you and I have talked about this. It is a hard thing to explain of
Yeah.
what Tammy does with intuitive sessions. But could you just give us the layman's terms, simplest way you can explain on what an intuitive session is?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll give you just a little bit of background first. So, like, I know now that I've always been very intuitive. I just didn't really understand it, right? So it's only been in the last few years that I've really opened up to energy work and to tapping more into my intuition. And that's why I like to help other women learn how to do that too, because we all have this intuition that we just don't listen to, right? Just like you said, you were battling for months on making a decision when you knew what you wanted to do, right? You just needed some help to get there. So my intuitive sessions are that first of all, I'm having so much fun with them because they are so different than my coaching sessions. An intuitive session for me, with me, is basically we come together and we are both open to whatever guidance wants to come through specifically for you. So everybody's in a different place when it comes to God, the universe, angels, source, whatever definitions you want to call that. But the way that most of these sessions have gone is that your guides, which I believe we all have guides, angels, beings on the other side, whatever you want to call them, helping us, they come through for you. And so in that case with you, I was getting messages to affirm and confirm some of the things that you were doing that I had no idea, right? We had never talked about
Yeah.
any of those things before, right? And so I'm a messenger, which is what I like to call myself in these sessions. And it really is just a way of sometimes it's very healing for people. Sometimes it's very, again, affirming of a decision that you've been going back and forth with. I am incorporating a little bit more energy work into them now as I've done more of these. Um, and so, yeah, it's a really fun way. And again, like I said, it's really hard to describe because literally everyone is very different because your energy is different. And then how open you are to hearing from your guides is also a factor in these sessions. But yeah, they've been really, really fun. And um, much like you, I mean, this has been something that I've been very hesitant about bringing out publicly just because of kind of my religious background and my own spiritual journey that I've been on. But it's something that I know I'm gifted with and something that I am being called to do more of.
And I'm so glad you are because, we all have a gift. We all
Hmm.
have, um, if you want to call it God-given gifts or natural born gifts, we all have them.
Hmm.
And if we're not sharing them with the world,
Yeah,
we're not, there's somebody out there that needs what we have, needs our gift to help them or guide them or
right.
support them or whatever that may be. And my belief is through all the years of doing energy type work, and a lot of research and studies, my belief is that we're born with these gifts and they keep growing and expanding as life goes on. And then
Hmm.
there comes a time in our life where you're just like, I gotta come out with this, like you with the,
Right.
being a
Right.
messenger. It's like I'm struggling. I am in pain by not sharing this.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because while you were talking earlier, I thought, oh my goodness, that is what I tell everyone that they need to bring their gifts to the world. Yet here I was still hesitant to bring this new gift again because it was new. Like I've gotten used to being a coach and the guidance that I can bring people in that from my business experience and from that. But I also have realized the more intuitive sessions I do, the more my coaching really is very intuitive. It's just different because um it's I'm not opening myself up completely to just be a messenger like I do with intuitive sessions. And I think part of that too is finding the language that works for you, right? So like many people would call this channeling, and I guess that is technically what it did, but that doesn't resonate with me, right? I just because I still feel like I'm me, and this is where I think it's so fascinating how we all have different gifts and how we use them differently. Because while I often don't remember some of the things, I'm still very fully present. And so while other people would say that they're not, so it's just fascinating how these gifts are so different for all
yeah,
of us.
yeah. And it's so great, because all of us um, all of us in the energy healing world,
Hmm.
um, it's a variety, and they just keep building and adding on as time goes on. You start
Hmm.
with one, and then over time, you're like, huh, I think I need to explore this now. And
Right.
it's really fun and interesting. And if we can get past our own fears and doubts and egos, I
Hmm.
guess I would call it. Look at all the people you're able to help because you finally got to that point where you're like, okay, here I go, I'm jumping in.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, even that, like you said earlier, calling me a healer, like that was also took a long time for me to be able to say that I am a healer.
Still don't like
Um,
that. I still have a tough time with
yeah,
that word. People call me that all the time. I'm like, I
yeah.
get really uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. Well, and that, that's where I've gotten to where I feel like Messenger is very helpful for me in like facilitating the healing. I'm not the healer. That's what I tell people. I'm
Exactly.
just facilitating it when you're open to it, right?
Mhm.
And it's also continually evolving, like you said. Like now, in my coaching, I help people kind of really learn how to feel their emotions and to, so that they'll pass through and so that they don't get stuck. But the more energy work I'm doing, the more I understand that sometimes we can actually, and this as an energy healer, release those emotions without ever even having to talk about them or having to dive into the trauma again. And that's a beautiful thing because I've experienced that in my own healing. And to be able to offer people that as well in these sessions it can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, and and that's an important point for anybody out there that's working in the healing industry, or whether it's energy healing or into it, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
If we're not doing it for ourselves, if we're not working with people, we are missing the boat,
Hmm. For sure.
because every one of us in these human forms, needs some sort of healing,
Hmm.
emotional
Yeah.
healing. And if we're not, I know Tammy works with people, I work with people.
Hmm.
In order for us to be present and work for our client or whoever's highest good and for our highest good, we have to continue to release and heal what's within us too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I'm grateful for you because you've helped me with tapping.
Yeah.
I'd known about tapping for a long time, but had kind of just put it to the side and just didn't really think about it. And then doing some sessions with you and really, because what I know about myself, and I told you this, I think in one of our sessions, is like I'm a naturally optimistic person, so I don't want to dwell on the negative, right?
Right.
And when you first start tapping, that you're focusing on the negative so that you can release it, right?
Jumping in. Yep. You're jumping
Yeah.
in.
And so that has been so helpful for me. And I've actually recommended tapping to a lot of my clients too, because it's a physical way that you can release this energy that gets trapped in our body. So thank you for the
Oh,
work that you do, 'cause
welcome.
it's been so
Yeah,
helpful for me.
it's all good. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, I listen to your podcast many times when I go outside walking, and um, Tammy's just a very soothing energy. If you haven't noticed by her voice, she's very soothing. She's very calming. Instead of paying for some of those apps that they have out with all the meditations, just listen to Tammy's podcast.
Oh, thank you. That's so
Yeah.
sweet.
So
I do hear that a lot. And so that's also something that I've had to really learn to embrace is because there are all different kinds of coaches and there are all different kinds of people who host podcasts. And sometimes I would find myself in the, well, I need to be the like rah rah, in your face kind of person, but that's not who I am. I help people feel really comfortable with themselves because I hold a safe space and because I have this calming presence. And it doesn't mean I don't get excited and, like to pump people up too, but my podcast actually started years ago. I just started interviewing people like authors and people who were doing things. It was when I was still in the corporate world, people who were doing things that were really outside of the world I was in so that I could experience them. And then a few years ago, I rebranded it to Intentional Life. And now it's typically, sometimes I will have conversations on there with people, but mainly it is me with very short, succinct, lessons, I guess I would call them, or things that I'm learning. I talk a lot about the fact that I am right in this, just like you said, I'm continually learning. I'm continually still getting coached and looking at my own stuff. And so I just feel like the podcast is a great way to share that. And the main thing is to just really create this intentional life that fits you and fits your world. And I talk a lot about deciding on purpose, who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world. And I think that is how we bring our gifts to the world, by being very intentional about them.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, yes, I highly recommend you listen to Tammy's podcast and get her book, Unapologetic. It's not a real intense read, it's a simple read,
Hmm. It's a simple
enjoyable
read.
read.
Yeah, it's a simple read, but I also am really big on helping people to implement what we're learning, right? Because I think so many of us are consumers of information. I mean, we constantly are with social media and everything we're bombarded with. And so, one of the things that I've really been intentional about over the last few years, and when I was writing that book, is like, let's actually put some of this in practice. Because just like, if you go hear a motivational speaker, or you go to a networking event and you learn something, but then you do nothing with it, you might take some notes. And so I really encouraged people with the book to actually dive into some of this stuff, no matter how long it took you. And it is I mean, the Audible, I think, is only like 2.5 hours long. So it's a pretty short, simple book. But yeah, I really encourage people to actually do the work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And with the exercises you put in there are so impactful
Thank you.
when you do them. But
Yes, that's
again,
the
it's
key.
it's like people are like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. I know what that means. Oh yeah, I know how to do that. Yeah. But
Mhm.
yes, we have to do the work. We have to be willing to do the work is what
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's such a great point, because I think I find that, I mean, with myself as well as a lot of my clients, of that is what we tell ourselves. Oh, we know this. We already know this, right? Yes, intellectually we may know a lot of these things, but in here, in our heart, and like, are we really embodying the things that we are intellectually thinking about? And a lot of the times the answer is no.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I always recommend to my clients, especially when I'm doing Zoom calls, tapping calls, or energy medicine calls, or if I make a suggestion that they start writing their thoughts down, they're like, oh yeah, 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 I know, but I know what my thoughts. I'm like, you need to give it energy on paper.
Mhm. Yeah.
Allow it to have some energy because it makes a huge difference. And just like the homework and the projects you have throughout the book, it's like really sit and take 45 minutes of your life, 30 minutes of your life, and go through those exercises and really write the things down
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
look
because
at
you'd
them.
be surprised what comes up that
I'm
you,
always surprised when I
right.
actually take the time to write, like do those exercises and write them down, write the answers
Mhm.
down and my thoughts. And yeah, it is
Yeah.
surprising. So
It's the same thing,
helpful.
I think, with tapping. Like, when you're guiding us through tapping and you say something that maybe we wouldn't, and then we repeat it and we go, oh,
Yeah.
I
Like,
didn't know that I really thought that.
yeah, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right.
Right, right.
I
Because
don't
we're
like
actually,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Getting honest. That's a big thing, is that, I really encourage people to get honest. And I feel like that is a gift that I have, is giving them space to be honest with themselves without judgment, which is a big part of a lot of my coaching, because I think so many of us haven't had that. We just haven't had safe people to be able to talk about some of these things, and people who won't use it against them or judge them for how they're
Gotcha.
acting. So
Yeah. And that's one of the greatest things, of working. Well, it should be that way with every energy
yeah.
worker is to, they don't hold any judgment. It's releasing of all judgment. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people's biggest fears of working with any coach is being judged for how they feel or what they do or what they don't do and choices
Hmm.
they've made in their life and whatever.
Yeah.
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 Tammy, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like people to know about you or your business or something we didn't talk about?
Well, I am in the process of writing my next book, so that's an
Oh,
exciting thing that's coming up.
yes.
I actually just made a lot of progress on that, so I don't have a release date yet, but and basically what this book will be is kind of the prequel to Unapologetic, because one of the things that I learned after writing the book and having, book signings and talking to a lot of people was so many women want to be unapologetic in their life, but they don't even know who they are first. And so this book is going to be a lot more about that, like really finding that light inside of you, what lights it up and, what dims it, and really figuring out kind of who you are. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, I'm really excited about intuitive sessions and just again helping women to feel more comfortable as themselves and to actually be willing. I think it's interesting what you said about, you were willing to take that step, but I think it started because you were willing to get honest about where you were really struggling, right? And to share it with someone. I think when we can share it with someone and someone can mirror back to us like that's amazing. That's you should absolutely do that, right? Then that gives you the courage and the willingness to try it, right? Because you're around
Right.
women who are supporting you.
Yeah, and you know that, and if this is for everybody out there, men or women, whoever, what I was struggling with for so long was I felt like I was holding myself back
Hmm.
from stepping forward in my life and my business. It's like
Hmm.
I got to keep this secret, people are going to look at me like I'm really weird.
Hmm.
So I felt even I was suppressing the whole thing, but as a result of suppression, I wasn't moving forward
Right.
and I was constantly frustrated
Hmm.
and just feeling like I was not my business was not going in the direction I was hoping.
Hmm.
And it's like I scheduled that session with you just after the holiday, and my month of January is when I take that whole month to cleanse my body of inflammatory foods and sugars. And so and then the month of January, and just going within for a whole month, it it really was beautiful for me.
That's awesome. I love that. And I'm so glad you shared that because I think you're right. I think we do this in so many different ways, right? Whether it is just not being able to say what you really like or what you really enjoy, or not being willing to try something that everything inside of you is saying, we want to do this, right? Like, come on. That's what happens a lot of times in the intuitive sessions is people's guides are like, okay, come on, like we're ready. We just need you to be ready and we need you to take that one step so we can keep
Yeah.
moving forward, right? And so that's so exciting. I'm excited to see
Yeah.
where your
Yeah,
business
I'm
goes.
excited to see where it's taking me,
Yeah.
and because I'm still in the transition. I'm still
Hmm.
transitioning, and I'm still, thoughts are coming in, all these ideas are coming in. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an exciting year. And with being the Lunar New Year, the year of the dragon,
Hmm.
exciting year for our industry, for the energy healing industry.
Yes, for sure.
Going to be a
Yes.
very
Well,
exciting year. That's what they're predicting. That's part of it.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. This
Yeah.
was a
Thank
joy
you,
and always an
Tammy.
honor. I love the work you do and just honored to be in your circle.
Thank you. And I encourage you, everybody, to reach out to Tammy, tammyhelfrich.com, and read about her, find out about everything she does, and reach out and schedule an appointment with her. You can do a consultation and just talk to her and
Yep.
see what she's like.
Yes.
Thanks. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon, Tammy. Thanks,
Okay. Thank
everybody.
you.